Welcome, everybody. We are so happy to have you here to join us for MarketStar's Women in Business 10-year celebration. My name is Chelsea Carver. I'm a director on the Reddit program and one of the co-chairs this year on Women in Business. This is my first year in Women in Business, and it has been just so lovely to join on a year where we get to look back on the last 10 years of such an amazing program. So thank you all for being here to celebrate with us and just take a moment to celebrate all the work and effort that has gone into this amazing program. We're super excited to have you here, and this is a great community, and we're going to talk a lot about what has happened over the last 10 years and what's to come. So first, to kick things off, please share in the comments. I think Steph already put this, but please share where you're joining from. We have people all across the globe. We're super glad to have you here. So join in the or add in the chat where you're joining from.
Yes, and my name is Amanda Glover. I am a director of sales, also on the Reddit program at MarketStar, and I've been on the Women in Business program for about 4-ish years, and it has been amazing to be a part of this. I am so excited to celebrate the last 10 years. It's great to see how such a small group came together to build this and what it's evolved to. So we're excited to kick things off. If you want to go to the next slide, we'll go over the agenda. So we're going to take you through just like the past, present, and future of the last 10 years and what's to come next. So we have a full agenda today. We're going to start with some remarks from Titus, and then we're going to go into the origin story from Angie Towns, who was one of the founding members of Women in Business 10 years ago. We're super excited to hear from her. We're going to come back to the present with a panel discussion led by McKayla Lanteri with panelists from all over the globe with some fun discussion. And then we're going to close out to talk about the future of women in business a little bit with Priscilla. So we're excited to kind of walk through this and see how this goes. Please stay engaged in the chat. We have lots of fun things coming.
Yes, thank you, Amanda. Next slide, Phil. Thank you. And since we wouldn't be MarketStar without a little bit of fun, we're going to have random gift card giveaways happening throughout the celebration. So please participate and share your thoughts, reactions, or takeaways in the chat as we go along. And again, today's event is really about celebrating, so we wanted to make this a lot of fun and really have the chat rolling. So we really want to hear from you. And to kick things off, so first I'll go over, we have a sponsored giveaway from Angie, who is our keynote speaker. Thank you so much, Angie. She's going to be giving away 5 Atomic Habits books and a 1-year subscription to Masterclass, which I'm sure she'll tell us more about. And then in the chat, we're going to be giving away 5 random gift cards throughout the event for chat participation. So I'm loving seeing this chat pop off. Thank you all so much. And then after the event is done, we're going to be giving away 5 random gift cards for social shares. So please share your key takeaways after the event on LinkedIn. Make sure you use the hashtag MarketStarWIB10 so that we can find your post, and you'll be entered to win one of those 5 gift cards.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get started. We're going to kick things off with someone who has not only been a supporter, but a strong advocate for women in business from the very beginning, Titus.
Thanks, Chelsea and Amanda. I think this is what we're so fortunate for your leadership. First of all, I want to appreciate not just only your leadership, but your friendship. I love that we have both a self-described introvert and an extrovert as the co-leaders of this program. I think you're both such a reflection of the amazing women in our business, and I think your personal growth, your personal stories, and your connections to this, I think, is reflected in everyone. So, good morning, good afternoon, evening to everyone. It really is a true honor to be here with you as we celebrate this milestone. This is, a significant milestone. It not only speaks volumes about not just time, which is 10 years is significant, but the impact. And 10 years in our business seems like a lifetime, but the impact has been significant. There has been 10 years of vision, courage, community, 10 years of lifting each other up, challenging norms. That was an early part of this program, was challenging some of the norms that were held. creating space for women to lead, thrive, and most importantly, kind of shape the future of MarketStar and shape each of us. And so, what a significant milestone. I'm going to be brief in my remarks because I'm really excited to hear about the stories, and see the panelists in action. I do want to share my gratitude though, and acknowledge, the organizers that organized the event today. Significant contribution of energy and commitment to this. I think this is exciting. I'm excited for it. I want to really thank every woman and ally that has participated in Women in Business over the last 10 years. There have been incredible people who've stepped up and led this initiative. They've volunteered to be mentors. They've championed this group over the past decade. And it's not just been women alone. It has been a shared lift. But this work has really built something that is enduring and powerful. And I'm so proud that it's part of our DNA. I don't want to spend a lot of time, talking about the studies and the insights that are out there about the promise and the proof of the impact that women have in our business and how essential it is to create an enduring and lasting business, because there's lots of those. But I do want to talk a little bit about my belief of, and I've shared this before, around what is the definition of a leader. And leaders come with titles and they come without titles. And this program has really elevated leaders in multiple ways. And the very best reflection of a leader are those who make people better because of their presence and have that impact last long into their absence. And when I think about what the two most significant impacts of Women in Business has been number one, the focus that they have as a group around leaning in on the direct personal growth of the individual. And as a result of that, every person in the immediate circle of that individual who's grown has been made better, and their life has been enriched because of the growth of that individual. And when we developed the company purpose of Create Growth 7 years ago, we talked about building a better version of ourselves. And we start with that because if we as individuals grow first, it gives us the ability to help those around us. And we felt that, and we see that every day as a result of this program. Second, and Amanda, I'm fully lifting this from your video. It has, and I can see this every day. It has created genuine connections that change the way we see and support each other. That connection has been authentic. It's been real. There's been emotion shared over the years in these Women in Business events where real problems have been looked at, real opportunities have been created, and real connection has happened. And I've seen firsthand how MarketStar has been enriched as a result of this program. Now, it's my privilege to talk a little bit about the looking ahead and the support we're going to have, but it would be impossible to not talk about the impact that Angie has had on me as a leader. And I know she's going to keynote this, and we have a great panelist. And so I want to take away from the incredible, rich stories of the panelists. But when I think about my life, seeing Angie as a leader that has both built and enabled this program with all of the other leaders, I've been made better because of it. Specifically, her ability to build people around her. And I don't believe that this program was built just to have an individual grow. It really is to make the fabric stronger, the community stronger that is associated with it. And that direct connection, that direct growth is definitely been evidenced. And there's been an incredible rich tapestry for 10 years on that. Now, let's talk about looking ahead. This anniversary is just not a celebration of the past. And if we just think about it as a past, we should honor the past. It really, for me, is a call to action. There are different opportunities and different challenges for the next 10 years for this business women in business program to solve. The problems and the challenges and the obstacles that we were trying to solve 10 years ago are not the same. We don't have the same barriers to access and growth that we had 10 years ago. However, we have some of the same opportunities. Continue mentoring, continue advocating, and most importantly, keep showing up, keep that genuine connection that has come through this. But look at the new challenges that we have in business and how this Women in Business program can continue to solve that. And the next 10 years will be shaped by what we do today. We can continue to support and advocate for each other. And with that, I am excited to celebrate. I'm excited to sustain the honor to both honor and sustain the legacy of this program. And I'm excited to commit to the future of it. And with that, I get to introduce Angela Towns. Ange, you have had a significant impact on me personally. We've shared lots of emotions over the years, can I swear on this? There's lots of times I've been kicked in the ass by Ange, more than once. I've been told to shape up. I've been told to quit whining. I've been encouraged. We've shared some tender moments where we've had real struggles, personally, professionally. And I can't think of a better representation of what this program has enabled. And it's my privilege to introduce Ange and thank her for her contributions. Ange, the time is yours.
Well, thank you, Keith. That was a very kind introduction. And, Keith and I have known each other for what, 20 years now, Keith? 25 years. And it's pretty rare to find people in your life that you can not see for 10 years, 20 years, and they walk back into your life and it's like they never left. And I just have to say, Keith is one of those people for me. And I remember when he left to go work for Motorola, and I always wondered what happened. What happened to Keith? Where was he? How was he doing? This was kind of back before we had a lot of ways to connect digitally. And when he came back to MarketStar and showed up at my office door, I was working in legal at the time, and Keith, I was just so genuinely happy to see you, and I have loved working with you, and I have learned so much from working with you. I can't even tell you how much I've learned from working with you. But I think for me, our personal relationship is so valuable, and I am sad that I can no longer call you my boss. But I am very, very honored and happy that I can still call you my friend. So thank you for that warm introduction. And thank you so much to everyone who is here. I want to tell you how grateful I am to be here, how humble I am to be asked to do this. This is kind of huge, guys. I mean, 10 years, that's pretty cool. So one of the things I want to start with really quickly is I want you to share in the chat the initials or the name of a woman who has inspired you and share a little bit about why. And I will start while you guys are kind of getting thinking. So the person that I chose for this was one of my first bosses, and her name was Lois Bowden. And one of the things that I remember about her is she had very high expectations. People were a little bit scared of Lois Bowden. People are kind of scared of me. I wonder if maybe that's where I got it. And I was scared of her, but she taught me so much. She gave very clear direction on what success looked like. So when you were working on a project, you knew exactly what she needed from you and exactly what you needed to do to get her to say, "Hey, good job." And you really wanted her to say good job. A good job from her meant so much because it was so rare. And so I learned a lot from her. But one of the things that happened that was particularly inspiring to me was in my first few months at MarketStar, I had a really serious illness. It's a long story. I won't go into it here, but it was a months long ordeal, and I came pretty close to death, actually. And shortly after I came back to work, after months of being out, she called me into her office and asked how I was doing. And I thought I was going to get fired. I knew I was not where I needed to be. I knew I wasn't as productive as I needed to be. And I was really prepping myself for a really tough conversation. And I said, I'm doing fine, kind of standard answer. And she looked at me and she said, "No, how are you really doing?" And I kind of just broke down and I admitted to her some of the struggles that I was having. I was trying to do a good job, but I also knew that I was dealing with some very significant side effects from a medication that I was on mentally and physically. And, I was young. I was 22, 23, I think, when this happened. I had some sky high medical bills and I was under a lot of stress. And instead of firing me, she gave me the space and flexibility to get through that year that I had to be on this tough medication. And then she called the hospital and worked out some things on my medical bills that basically just saved me financially. And she showed me that you can have high expectations and a very driven work ethic and still care about people and that the individual matters. And in that moment where I experienced for the first time the real we care that MarketStar embodies, 25 years before, we have these we care values, it was there even then. And I felt seen and valued as a person beyond what I was actually doing at the time for the company. And so that was just such a huge inspiration to me. And I love these examples coming in. Keep them going. Shay Hill, I am also inspired by Shay Hill. So huge. I'm so happy to see that so many of you have examples of women who have inspired you. Hope, reset my understanding of boundaries between personal and professional life. That is huge. That is something that we think about and we battle every day because those boundaries are sometimes hard to set and hard to communicate. So these are awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. Igniting curiosity and helping see others' potential. I love the word curious. I think as long as we're curious, we're always learning. And that is what women in business and this group is really all about. So thank you for sharing those examples. Keep them coming. Again, Antoinette Martin. I am also inspired by Antoinette all the time. Even still, to this day, Antoinette inspires me. She frequently sends me memes and gifts to make my day just a little bit brighter. So these are awesome. So I wanted to jump into the origin story just a little bit. And when I met with Amanda and Chelsea, they asked me to do a couple of things. They said, "Can you give us a little bit of the history on women in business? And can you share some accomplishments that you're proud of?" And so that's kind of how I've oriented my remarks today. So when I think about our origin story, there's some interesting things that came about early in the women in business story that I'll share with you that maybe some of you long-timers remember. But the original concept was sparked by a conversation between a CEO and a female leader, and they were talking about how few women we had in leadership roles. And so the early concept in 2014 was actually a structured mentoring program. And we took months, and I say we, but it's really more of a royal we because it was mostly Antoinette. And we looked out across the company and we found over 70 women who wanted to be mentored. And we found over 70 people who wanted to be mentors. And then through some extensive surveying and meetings, we determined how to match those mentors and those mentees up. So it was a lot of work. We were just about to launch. We had an event planned, and then something happened. In late 2014, we had a major client loss that impacted the company in a pretty big way. And we lost most of our mentees and our mentors. And so we really had to kind of pause and reflect and redirect a little bit. And it was a moment that really reflects kind of most of our careers because our careers are not linear and the women in business journey was not linear either. So we had to be really resilient and very adaptive. So in the summer of 2015, we revamped the program and we decided that our goal was to build something that would meet the needs of the women at MarketStar in that moment. We wanted to build awareness and encourage women and allies to show up. And we wanted to increase professional development and mentorship across the company and build a stronger community. So we went ahead and launched in late 2015. And we kept the original branding. You can see this original logo here. We called it MIM, and Mentoring Initiative for MarketStar, because we already had it built. We believed that at some point we would still get back to maybe that mentoring program, so we wanted to keep it in place at the time. So we went ahead and launched. And then another thing happened in 2015. In December, our CEO accepted the Women Leadership Institute Elevate Her Challenge. And what this did was it really made us think about how we could create measurable progress against our goals and objectives. And the Women Leadership Institute Elevate Her Challenge had 7 or 8 different kind of key things that companies were challenged to do to make progress. And we looked at that list and we said, gosh, if we try to do all of these, we're probably going to not make very much impact, because our impact's going to be diluted across so many of these. So we picked a couple of focus areas around increasing our female population, increasing the percent of women that we have in leadership roles, and increasing retention. And we really believed that if we could do these things, it would have a halo effect on some of the other areas that we wanted to impact. And then the other thing that this did for us is we started to gather data. So we got our baseline data together and we started to track it. And so we ended up with a lot of data that we could go back and benchmark against to see if we were making progress. And then in 2016, we had our first official full year of monthly meetings. And I've got a slide here in a minute to show you what that looked like. It's kind of fun. I found it in the archives, all of the fun topics that we talked about. We also sponsored employee attendance at community events. Our focus was on educating and empowering and elevating the women across the company. The other thing that we did is we would sponsor networking events with the Women Tech Council, local chamber events. So we started to partner just a little bit with some of our community partners, and that was really exciting. Up until 2017, we primarily targeted all of our messaging to women. When we sent out our invites or our emails, we would take a list of all the women in the company and we would send it to the women. And then in 2017, we had some conversations about who we included. And we chose to expand that to include everyone. We felt like lasting cultural and systemic change really was going to require collaboration between men and women. And when we surveyed our women in business group, over 66% of them voted to include men. And there were a few mixed perspectives, but the overwhelming majority saw the value of the inclusiveness. And it really helped us to start to create informed allies, prevent our own echo chambers, and really build awareness of bias and expand collaboration across the program. So that was a really key milestone. And I don't know that a lot of people are aware of that. So I'm really glad that we made that decision, because it fundamentally and exponentially grew the program. Like it's been so much better because we include everyone. In a couple of years later, shortly after the beginning of 2019, we started looking at our name and we thought, I think this doesn't fit anymore. So we went to work with some branding with the help of marketing, and we said, you know what, let's just call this what it is. This is a group of women in business. And so we renamed it, rebranded it. And we also created a structured committee led by a dedicated chair and co-chair with some subcommittees. So 2019 is really when we kind of put that structure in place, late 2018 into 2019. And it gave us an opportunity to grow other leaders and build an intentional talent pipeline. Up to that point, it was primarily me, Antoinette, a few other people that would get together and pull people in. And we wanted to be more deliberate about how we were growing that talent pipeline. This gave us an opportunity to shoulder tap both men and women to lead and collaborate to help the program grow. And I feel like that has helped us make significant progress when I look at the people who have served in those chair and co-chair roles, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. And then in 2020, of course, the world shut down with COVID. We were just about to launch for the year. We always had a launch at the beginning of the year, and everything went dark. And so we had to very quickly transition to a fully digital launch. We had to redesign our content, our connection opportunities, and our engagement tools. But it really helped us be resilient and innovative, and it set us up for more global growth this is what we're doing today, right? The fact that we can have so many people around the world on this call, COVID got us ready for this, that we can have 218 people in various locations. We're not sitting down in a training room trying to broadcast out to a handful of people who have crappy Wi-Fi. So I'm actually really grateful that that came out of COVID. It was a major shift for us, but I think it's been really an opportunity to grow the influence of the Women in Business program. And then the other thing we did in 2019 is we launched our social media presence. We worked with the chair and co-chair, and they felt like that was an important step to take. And we did it. And that's so we have a separate social media presence. So we were really excited about that. And I was really excited to go back and look at some of the past posts and some of the past coffee chats to see that that presence is alive and well. One other significant thing to mention, and this was not a specific women in business initiative, but it does impact all the women at MarketStar. And I do believe it was influenced by women in business because we now had 6 years of talking about the data that we had been looking at. HR undertook a pay parity initiative and went back and made substantial progress in equalizing leadership counts and pay across most levels of the company. I can tell you guys, most companies don't do this. Like the fact that MarketStar took the time to look at the data and say, we can do better, that is huge. So I feel like that is a huge key milestone. And so that's why I've included it here. I'm very proud that our leadership team focused on that. MarketStar takes it seriously and wants to continue to make progress. And then through 22 and 23, we've continued to increase our global presence. India, Bulgaria, welcome. We love having people around the world be part of Women in Business. It's so awesome to look at the pictures that you guys post, and I see so many different faces from different places. I love it. And then 10 years, we're here, 10 years. That is an awesome milestone. Congratulations to everyone. Everyone. I can't even tell you how proud I am that we're here for 10 years. So that's kind of the history. I'd be curious to know, maybe post it in the chat. Did you learn anything new? Did you guys already know all of this? Was there something interesting to you that you were like, I wouldn't have thought of that. I'd be curious to know what you think of that history. Some of you are long timers and you remember some of this, and but I know a lot of you are new, so this might be some new stuff. So let's talk for just a minute about our first year. This is just fun. I found this in the old files and I'm like, I got to share this. This was our first 1 year lineup. You'll see some names you recognize, maybe some names you don't. These are some of the topics that we talked about in our first year. That first year, we had 26 plus presenters. We had over 18% of our female workforce participate. We averaged about 55 attendees, which it's really, really cool to see that we have 216 people on this call when I see that number of 55. And we had really good success with these hot topics. And we actually increased, I actually had to double check these numbers. Based on my data from 2016, we actually increased the total female population from 17% in June of that year to 24% in November of that year. So we do believe that women in business helped us attract and retain some really key talent. And we were so excited about that. So that's just a look at the first year. That's just kind of for fun. So let's talk really quickly about some things that I am proud of. And I would love to hear in the chat what you're proud of. These are things I'm proud of, but everybody has had their own perspective and experiences with women in business. So please share in the chat what you're proud of. These are things I'm proud of. And if I've misremembered anything, I am counting on my long timers to correct me in the chat and give me the right information, because I do have to say, and Keith will agree with you, my memory's faulty. I'm getting a little old. Things are a little rusty there. So you see, he's laughing. He knows it's true. So these are things I'm proud of. Number one, the tenure. Wherever you are, I don't care if you're on video, off video, sitting next to someone, sitting in your house, I want you to give us all a round of applause. This is awesome. Celebrate wherever you are. Some of the biggest reasons for the long-term success of this program are the leadership support, the grit and determination of all of the people that have been involved, who have kept this pushing and kept it going, and our internal and external community partners that have also continued to support us. So give yourself a round of applause. This is awesome. I'm also really proud of the social presence and the global reach. When you look at the across the globe and you see that we have 31 committee members across the globe. We have primary chapters in 4 countries, the US, Dublin, India, and Bulgaria. Like, this is so cool, you guys, that we have this kind of global reach. So proud of this. The next thing that I'm proud of, and I see this on LinkedIn all the time when you guys get awards, even though I'm not with the company anymore. Look at all of these awards, and I've highlighted the ones in green that relate specifically to creating a great workplace for women where women feel like they are supported and cared about. And some of these are, even though there's only one box, there's consecutive years, right? That shatter list, 8 consecutive years. So this is so cool. I'm so proud of you guys for this. The next thing that I am proud of personally is the community impact. It was really fulfilling to watch the Women in Business Group partner with the MarketStar Foundation and Tech Moms to support women with workforce reentry and entry. So women who wanted to come back in the workforce, they needed some additional training. Like, that partnership to help women in our community grow and come into MarketStar or grow into other careers elsewhere is huge. The fact that we've had community impact beyond our own 4 walls, I'm so proud of it. Great job, you guys. I'm really proud of the progress we've made on key outcomes. When I went back and looked at our 2016 data versus the data that I got from the team for 2025, we've made significant progress in all of our key outcomes. I think probably the when it comes to meaningful change, the thing that I'm probably the most proud of is the shift in the culture. We have been able to have hard conversations and uncomfortable conversations that probably didn't happen as often 10 years ago. And I think that in and of itself helps women and men more than just about anything, because we're able to talk about those things, talk about solutions, and talk about paths forward. So of everything on this slide, I would have to say I'm the most proud of that cultural shift. We have to celebrate our leaders. We've had some amazing chairs and co-chairs. If I have any of these years wrong, please correct me, because we actually really want to keep this slide for historical context. This is going in the archive so we don't forget. I have had the opportunity to work in some capacity with all of these individuals, even Amanda and Chelsea, as we prepped for this session. And it's just awesome to see this group of people on one slide. I'm so grateful for their dedication, for my opportunity to work with them. There is no monetary incentive to participate in Women in Business. The people on this slide do it because they care about growth at MarketStar. It is all about that. So proud of you. Thank you, all of you. If I missed anyone, please let me know. We want to get you on this slide. So thank you, all of you. I'm so proud of the internal and external perspectives you guys are still bringing in. I went and pulled your last few coffee chats, and this is something that was really important to us when we started. And I do feel like bringing in those external perspectives to mix with your internal people is so important. So thank you for continuing that. I'm really proud that this tradition has continued. And we can't say what we're proud of without talking about the people. We have some amazing people who have participated over the years in Women in Business. I went back to our archives, pulled some photos. Look at all of these awesome women. We pulled together some career cards one year to distribute with some of their favorite quotes. This was awesome. Look at all these people. I love seeing all these faces. I love seeing the men in these photos who are here participating with the women. And there are a lot of firsts with Women in Business. And I wanted to choose my favorite first moment. If you have a favorite first moment, please share it in the chat. But my first favorite moment was in 2020 when we had a launch coming up, and Shay Hill was our incoming chair, and she had just had a new baby. We couldn't launch without our chair. We were doing a virtual launch, and Shay brought her baby to the meeting, and we put her on camera, and she was in the meeting with little Axel. This was a first. I'm sure there have been times in the past before this where maybe moms were on conference calls with babies in their arms, but for me, this is the first time that we had a meeting with lots of people on camera, and we had a mom sitting there with a baby in their arms. And it was such a powerful moment because it was a reminder that we can be parents and dedicated professionals, and that our lives and our work don't have to compete, but they can coexist beautifully. So, this is one of those moments that to me quietly changes culture. It's a reminder that when we bring our whole selves to work, we create space for other people to do the same. And it was a symbol of what it means to truly belong here at MarketStar and in this group, to be seen, to be cared about, supported, and celebrated, both as a professional and a parent. So this was my favorite first moment that I am so proud of. So share your first favorite moments in the chat. I'm so proud of what this means to our people. I took the videos that led up to this event and created a word cloud of all of the amazing things that came out from Shay and Rebecca and Jessica, all of the people that spoke in those videos. And look at these awesome words: connections, experiences, conduit, changed, access, scope, success. Like, this is awesome that this is what this means to our people and that this is what it's become. I'm so grateful for the words of our own people that continue to inspire others. Steph Sadler, Women Rise Together, We Ignite Change. Our first chair, Diane Graybill, said this continues to shape lives and careers at MarketStar. She's so proud to play a small part. Nick, Women in Business, helped me learn how to talk about the hard things, the things that are uncomfortable. How badly do we need that? Danette Pulley, it became a community grounded in support, shared learning, true belonging. And Antoinette, no manager or coach offered or could offer the opportunities that she had from Women in Business. Megan Higgins, who was one of our chairs, said she really wanted to build a foundation where women could see themselves as leaders, have the support and skills to get there. Phil even commented. So I reached out to multiple people in my network and asked for feedback on this. And I got a great quote from Phil. This group has never wavered and it will always be a beacon for us. Shay Hill, it's where we empower people to do and be more. Camille Colley, it helped me build meaningful relationships that wouldn't have formed without this experience. Paul Grant, it's allowed us to improve decisioning and outcomes across the business. When you start saying that this group, Women in Business, has a positive impact on business outcomes, what a success. What a proud moment. And Allie Mitchum reached out yesterday by text, just kind of ad hoc. I didn't even reach out to her to ask her for a quote, but one of the things she said was, I will forever remember the impact each of you had on the woman I am today. So I am so proud of what this means to the people who've participated, who show up, who contribute, who want to continue to grow each other. You've grown each other, and this is so cool. These are the things that I am proud of. So let's talk really briefly, kind of about some information that we got back from you on a survey that we did. I provided Amanda and Chelsea with a survey. I wanted a little bit of information coming into this. Let me just tell you maybe just a few of those stats, just so you can understand kind of where we are today. Over 60% of the respondents have had at least some engagement with Women in Business. That's a pretty good number. There was a pretty strong mix of new and established team members, most with under 6 years. So we're talking about a fairly new group, fairly new demographic. Nearly half have experienced some level of personal or professional growth through Women in Business. And if you look at these most valuable activities, they're really anchored around leadership panels, guest speakers, and professional development workshops. So, and I'm really happy to see that 68% of the respondents said they would be interested in future involvement. Let's get them involved. I hope they're here today. I hope they want to continue to be involved and do something and play a bigger part. When we looked at the words that people used to describe it in the survey, empowerment came out as the number one word and followed closely by empowering and opportunity. That is powerful. It tells me that we are moving the right direction and people feel like their voices matter and that our progress feels real to people. So it's great to see that this is where you are. I did capture a couple words of encouragement. I'll kind of let you guys read through those just a little bit. I want to call out the last one because it was probably my favorite. It was leadership isn't about fitting into a mold, it's about breaking it and building something better. And that is so true. Break it and build something that works for you. When you look at the next 10 years, most of you feel like you still want to see more women in leadership roles. You still want to see more mentorship programs and sponsorship programs, and you definitely want more professional development and training. Overall, I think everybody who responded really sees the next decade as a time to elevate women, nurture these opportunities, and build allies across the community. So I was really happy to see this survey data come back so strong. I feel like there were some really positive things that were said and in the numbers. So you should feel good about where you are today because it still matters. It really, really still matters. And let's talk about why it still matters. I would love to hear from you why you think it still matters. So add that to the chat, please. And let's maybe talk about some of those here in just a minute. Here are some reasons that I think it still matters. And I know Priscilla's going to chat with you here in a little while, and she's going to tell you why she thinks it still matters as well. But even with the progress that we've made and the education and the participation, we still have work to do. Women in business helps us build a talent pipeline and helps us grow people into opportunities. You see this as you look across our chairs and our co-chairs. We definitely have more innovation when we collaborate and have diverse perspectives. Back to Paul Grant mentioning positive impact on business outcomes. That's the innovation that comes when people collaborate. When you look at our culture and you look at the values, you belong, leaders who amplify, we care. What better embodiment of those values than women in business? I can't think of, I just, women in business embodies those values so well. So we need to continue to build that culture. Building a community brand is meaningful because you start to bring in those external perspectives that reflect our values, and it helps all of you grow, all of us grow. And the last two things I'll say that are not on this slide. Women do still face distinct barriers and challenges that are different, and women in business is a safe place to address those realities. We balance caregiving and careers. Sometimes we're the only woman in the room. This is a place where we can talk about that with others. We also have some changing generations. There are some of you on this call who may be younger, and you may be thinking, I haven't experienced maybe some of the things that my older coworkers have. You still benefit from learning the history of these challenges, gaining that perspective, and building meaningful networks with those people in the group. So those are the reasons that I think it's still important. And I love the ones that are coming in because women struggle validating their professional growth, often due to complexity of their priorities and focus on relationships, trust, and creativity. That is so true. That is very, very true. It affects our culture. There is no destination you can arrive at with this initiative. It's a constant journey. It is a constant journey, and that leads me actually to my last couple of slides. This is a constant journey. Culture shifts require constant cultivation and care. There is no end destination. It's going to require sustained effort, ongoing conversations, and continued effort from everybody here. It's never static. Culture is never static. And if we don't proactively shift it in the direction we want it to go, it will shift on its own, but it will probably go in a direction you don't want it to go. So using women in business as a tool to actively shift and shape the culture in the direction that we want it to go is so, so important. And finally, I'm just going to leave you with a couple things that you can do. We've taken a moment to celebrate, but women in business is not about looking back. It's about moving forward. And so as we celebrate this progress and how far we've come, we need to be thinking about how women in business can give us the tools to challenge boundaries and help the new generation of women prepare for and step into leadership roles with purpose and support. So we want to continue to create that space. You heard Keith talk about creating space for mentorship, growth, cross-functional support. One of the biggest values of women in business is you get exposure to all different aspects of the business, not just your team. So you don't stay in your silo. You get all kinds of access. And with as big as the company is now, you get global access. You get to understand how things are done in other countries. That's a huge benefit. I would challenge all of you on this call to take some action, big or small. Stay in the conversation. Speak up and share your voice because your perspective does matter. What we're talking about here today will shape women in business into what you need it to be. Make it yours. What it's been for the last 10 years may not be what it needs to be for the next 10 years. That's okay. There's nothing that we've done in the past that has to stay the same. The whole purpose of the organization of women in business is to meet the needs of the women and the men at MarketStar and help people grow. So engage with purpose. This is not just a social group. This should be about networking. It's about challenging each other to grow. It's about learning together, overcoming problems. But while you're doing that, you're also connecting with women that maybe have been in business longer than you or have done something different than you that you can learn from. So we want to create an environment where we can interact horizontally as well as vertically so that we can further our skills and grow our careers and our connections. Think about what you can bring to others. I would guess that there's probably somebody who has sat in a women in business coffee chat or maybe is on this call right now and has thought to themselves, I don't get anything out of women in business. If you're one of those people, I would challenge you to think about what you can bring to others. What do you know that can help someone else grow? I guarantee you there is something that you know that will help someone else grow. Bring that to women in business and share it. And then be willing to lean into the uncomfortable. That really, truly is where the growth happens. The next chapter, I'm so excited to see what the next 10 years looks like. And I hope in 10 more years, we're sitting on this call with Amanda and Chelsea as our keynote speakers, celebrating the next 10 years. So the next chapter depends on all of you, your voices, your ideas, your leadership. Thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be here to celebrate with you. I'm so grateful for all of the people who have made the 10-year celebration possible because they put the work in to get us to 10 years. So congratulations, MarketStar Women in Business. You will always have a special place in my heart, and I'm so excited to see us celebrate 20 years. And I will turn it back to Amanda and Chelsea.
Angie, thank you so much. That was such an incredible reflection. And it's great to see, the evolution of this program that you built from such a small group of people 10 years ago. And I love the slide, from 2020 with Shay holding the baby, on her chest. That is so touching to see how that's evolved. A couple times you've mentioned empowerment and culture, and that really defines, what this group is about. And I wanted to say thank you to both you and Keith. Culture starts from the top. It starts from our leader. And when you went over the awards slide, you talked about creating a workplace where women feel supported and cared about. And as a woman in this workplace, I can tell you I felt nothing but that my entire time here. I've been with MarketStar for 8 years now, and every day in my current role, I find growth and I find value. But when I joined Women in Business, I found more purpose and I found more impact. And that's something I didn't even know that I needed. But Keith, Angie, you guys have created this environment and continue to amplify that every day. So just personally, thank you. This has been an incredible program. And I'm going to kick it to Chelsea to introduce our next section.
Yeah, so thank you, Angie. That was beautiful. Keith, thank you for leaning in the last 10 years and showing up for us. I want to also really quickly add that Keith not only lifts us from within his own company, but he also leans into his broader community. He's a member of I believe, Utah chapter. Amanda, what is it exactly? Sorry, the foundation that he's part of.
Women's Leadership Institute Board.
Yeah. So we meant to mention that when we introduced Keith, but again, we have a lot of support and lean in multiple areas here. So thank you so much. Now, with that, I'm going to kick off our transition to our panel. And this conversation is really going to be all about perspective and honesty. I think we've talked a lot about having authentic voices come to the table and having those kind of uncomfortable conversations. So we are going to do that today with this panel. We have such a powerhouse group of women joining us, and I'm super grateful for their time. Leading our conversation today is McKayla Lanteri. McKayla's been instrumental in shaping this panel's voice and making sure that we come unfiltered to the table. So thank you, McKayla. And with that, I'll kick it to you to introduce our panelists.
Awesome. Thanks. Just kidding. Thanks, Chelsea. Super excited to keep this celebration going. The theme of today's panel, if you will, is unfiltered. The glass ceiling is cracked. Now what? Most of us on this call have the privilege of being a part of an organization who truly has instilled in our DNA that we can achieve. But as Angie mentioned, we're not done. What next? Where can we go from here? So really, we've shattered that illusion of women can't, but now it's time to talk about maybe what's still holding us back and where we can go from here. So with that, I'm super excited to introduce you to our panelists. So I want to welcome back our special guest, Angie Towns, Chief of Staff from Bank of Utah. We have who I'd like to now refer to as Courtney's Angels. We have Erin Moore, Senior Director of Talent Acquisition and HR Operations, based here in Utah. We have Vicki Fitzpatrick, Director of People Success, coming to us from Dublin. Show love in the chat. We have my personal partner in crime, we have Marilyn Mila, Director of Organizational Development. She's from Hyderabad, India, but we actually have the privilege of hosting her here in Ogden, Utah currently. And last but certainly not least, we have Stephanie Sadler coming to us from Oklahoma, and she is our Senior Director of Sales. Welcome, ladies. How is your morning, afternoon, evening going?
Really well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me and us. I'm really honestly honored to be here, and especially after I feel a bit of pressure after Angie's amazing introduction and the background of obviously women in business at MarketStar. I'm very new to MarketStar, obviously, so thank you for having me here.
And honestly speaking, McKayla, all these days I felt that the temperature was pretty cold, but suddenly the temperature has risen because I'm quite nervous with so much information. I hope I live up to the expectations, but it's so honored to be on the panel. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So happy to have you all. All right, let's get down to business. We have some forward provocative questions that we want to ask today, different topics that we really want to go edgy and really get some deep conversations going. First off, I want to talk about this topic of leadership or lost. When we define success, there's so many times where we only are looking at that in a linear growth path. If we're not growing up up the corporate ladder, then where does that success lie? I'd first love to take our audience. Raise your hand or use the chat, and I want to hear from you if you've ever been turned down for a promotion and felt guilty about it. What an interesting concept to feel guilty. To kick us off with this, Steph, I'd love to hear from you. How do you redefine this topic? If you're not climbing the corporate ladder, how do we redefine what success looks like and not falling into that corporate trap?
Yeah, I think in my career, it all goes back to really figuring out people's why and why they're at an organization, but then also like what do they love to do? I don't love parts of my job, and I'm actually very vocal with my leadership team about it, and I ask for help on those things. But it's okay if you don't want to be a leader. You just need to share with someone what you do love about your current role, and I think it can be linear. And then the other thing is, I think some people know this, but like I love to be creative. So I paint and I have a yard sign business on the side that I run with my 14-year-old. So you can also go sideways and do other things in your life that aren't just the corporate ladder that can bring you just as much joy.
Steph, I love that. What really stands out to me there is this concept of, we want these roles, we want these prestigious things, but if you don't like the job that you're doing, then it's not going to feed that broader piece. So that's a really, really strong takeaway. Vicki, what about from your perspective? What does success look like outside of just titles?
Yeah, I think, it has definitely changed and evolved for me personally over the years. Success to me previously would have looked like exactly that, chasing those titles. But now it looks more like balance, doing the work that I'm proud of, being present with my family, and then not needing a title just to solely validate my worth, in the workplace or personally as well. So that has changed. I used to, equate success with busyness and recognition, but personally now, it's a lot deeper than that. It is about having that purpose, having the freedom that we all crave as well that comes with it. So yeah, it's evolved a lot in my professional career.
Yeah. Do you think that as it's evolved, we even heard it this morning of this concept of, how COVID has really shifted our world in so many ways. Where do you feel like that shift happened for you along your journey?
Yeah, so like for me personally, like I'm a mother and I used to sort of hide that, which sounds really, really sad. But, I used to, pre-COVID, there was no such thing as flexibility, working from home. For me, anyway, it was a 9 to 5 grind. And, you would nearly be afraid to say you needed to take time out, to look after your kids, to do an early school collection. And that has opened so many doors now since COVID. And it's probably the number one, and maybe the only benefit I would actually take from it is the flexibility it has allowed my family that we have now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think so many of us share in that same feeling. Angie, have you ever been turned down, or have you ever turned down a promotion? Why? What was the context? Why didn't you go for that opportunity?
Yes, I have. And I think when I think about success, similar to Vicky, my definition has changed over time. It's not just about pay or a title, it's about creating what looks good for me and what feels good for me. And so, I have turned down roles that required a lot more travel where I would have been away from my family. And, women prioritize things a little bit differently. And my family is a priority. And so I know other women actually on this call that I've spoken to have turned down promotions within the company as well as without the company because of that, because they wanted to continue to have the flexibility to be able to take care of their families at the same time. And I also think that this concept of upward mobility, climbing a ladder, if you will, as the only measure of growth is a little bit of a fallacy. I think most of my growth over the course of my career has been lateral. It's when I got to work on projects. I worked in legal, and someone came to me and said, "Hey, we need someone to run an email retention initiative. Can you come run this for us?" Yes, absolutely. So I think that having managers and bosses that allowed me that lateral growth, that allowed me to see different aspects of the business and grow my perspective of the business, probably helped me grow more than climbing rung by rung and steps up a ladder. So I think when you think about success and growth, you have to talk about the lateral as well as the vertical, because they're both valuable in different ways. And if you're at a place in your life where flexibility is very important to you, and maybe it's not the time for you to be going up the rungs on the ladder, that doesn't mean you can't grow, and it doesn't mean you can't be expanding your influence and your impact by growing laterally.
I love that piece, especially around the concept of influence and influential power. I heard a quote once that said, if you're growing up the corporate ladder, you're growing for others, but if you grow laterally, you're growing for yourself. And that kind of took a while to really sit with me, but it's really the difference of self-development versus, again, chasing that prestige title that's more forward facing. Angie, what advice would you give to someone who maybe is newer in their career, where they're balancing, especially in today's economy, where a lot of the time promotion does come with a pay increase, and a pay increase opens opportunities for your family and gives you different resources, but being able to balance that with flexibility and being able to be there and present, those are two very defining things as caregivers that we have to really take into consideration. What would be your thoughts on that?
Honestly, my first advice to people in those situations is to have very candid conversations with their managers and their mentors. I think sometimes we think we can't talk about those things with our leaders. We think that we have to, keep everything about work in order to make progress. But I think helping our managers understand where we're coming from and what our goals are will help them look out for us and have our backs and help us find other ways to maybe grow, whether that's growing in pay or growing in additional skills and abilities. So I think learning to bring your manager into the conversation in a very deep and personal way is important because they need to understand where you're coming from. So that's probably the first thing I would say. And I think the second thing that I would probably say is sit down and map what you really want and what's important to you. Like, what are your non-negotiables? Because you may find that some of those non-negotiables might be impacted by a promotion or might be improved by a promotion. If one of your non-negotiables is you have to make more money because that's where you're at financially, then that may make the decision for you. So actually putting down on a piece of paper in writing what kind of your non-negotiables are can be a powerful tool to help you guide your own decisions. So that's probably the two things I would say.
Yeah, that's so helpful. I think a lot of us can definitely benefit from both of those points. Marilyn, I'd love to know how, we as an organization or even the leaders within our organization, how can we encourage growth outside of that linear promotion path that we've all agreed isn't the only way to succeed?
I think women in business is a great example, isn't it? A lot of times, and we are conditioned to think growth is always upward, like we discussed, but I think we agree that growth is linear and it is possible, especially in today's workforce across different cultures. I think the best way to encourage growth is to talk about it right from the time people join our organization and in the way we communicate that, hey, growth doesn't always have to be a step-by-step process, but we have multiple channels and multiple channels for people to grow, and growth doesn't always have to be a monetary reward. It can be just improving your professional skill set when you join an organization, or being a part of a special project where you may not be a pro at it or a subject matter expert at it, but just observing and learning in that project itself will give you a broader view of how things work in different organizations. I think welcoming conversations, welcoming communication, being transparent about what things how things are going on in an organization will really help everybody understand that growth is not upward but is linear. But I think MarketStar is a great example that not just women in business, there are so many projects that we do, and there's so much cross collaboration, and not just for women, but for everybody to have that growth opportunity.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The concept of especially project based on that advice. Yeah. Meet new people. Most people are located in different regions, so you're learning, cultural differences and all the nuances and skill sets of communication and all of those points. I think that's such a powerful action item that we can take from here. Erin, there's the long-standing, I don't know the exact data point, but I believe it's something to the effect of men are more likely to apply for jobs that they are nowhere near qualified for when a woman isn't going to apply unless she's 100% there. Regardless if we're trying to grow ourselves up or lateral, what advice would you give to someone who needs that push to apply for the job, even if they're not quite ready?
Yeah, I think the stat you're looking for, men usually apply for roles if they meet 60% of the qualifications. Women usually don't apply until they meet 90% of the qualifications. And I see this as a recruiter, we'll post positions and we'll have, only a third of our applicants are women. And in my head, I just have to say, like, how many women disqualified themselves? How many women, are perfectly competitive and would align with the talent we have within this candidate pool, but they doubted themselves and disqualified themselves. And so I think that something so critical is just, you have to be an advocate for yourself and you have to try, right? Apply for jobs like a man. If you meet 60%, apply. The worst case scenario is they say, hey, this isn't a fit this time, try again later. And you're going to limit your opportunities if you don't put yourself out there.
That's a huge one. It might have been you actually that gave me this advice where, go find a job posting on LinkedIn. Maybe it's not the company you want to go for, but find the role. Mm-hmm. And that as your growth path for the next 6 months. Go check off those pieces to feel more empowered so you can lean in. And then even from a leader, the way that we write job descriptions, you've also guided me on that piece. What are your thoughts for leaders? How could we write our job postings in a way that is more encouraging and inclusive?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that we always recommend is to run our job descriptions through a gender decoder. So we'll put them through like an AI module that will help us identify words that are masculine versus feminine. And then we'll do everything we can to make sure that those job descriptions are as neutral as possible so that we're equally attracting talent across the board. And I think as leaders, just being really thoughtful about where bias may be involved in the hiring process. So what's the language we're using? How are we defining what our ideal candidate looks like? And are those ideals going to lean one way over the other? And how can we mitigate that throughout the process? I think it's really critical for us to just be conscious of that and to check our own bias throughout the processes.
Oh, that's huge. That's a great thought. I think my closing thoughts, and I'd love to hear from our audience of your closing thoughts and takeaways, but really it's define your own success, right? What does that look like for you and your circumstances and your family, not based on what, society thinks is successful. Being able to lean on your leaders and your mentors and, those around you that are supporting you. Everyone has a community. Find yours. And again, I feel very privileged to be in this organization because my community's turned into my close and personal friends outside of work. It's where I spend, majority of my life in that piece. And then really being able to put yourself out there, and it's okay to not feel 100%, but you are, and push for those. So thank you, ladies. I think that's a huge one. I'd like to now pivot the conversation to the concept of women supporting women, but are we really? I think best of intentions definitely live within our org and our daily lives, but I'd like to quickly share a personal story. My mother, love her to death, she calls me often and gives me random thoughts, right? And if I'm not in a meeting, I try to answer. And a couple weeks ago, this has happened before, but a couple weeks ago, I answered the phone. She's like, hey, trying to nail down Thanksgiving plans. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, I'll talk to Steven tonight. Like, I gotta go. And she's like, oh, honey, well, don't bother him right now. He's working. And I'm like, well, one, I talked to him tonight, but two, I'm working. What about my job? Like what? And I don't think my mom is trying to sabotage my piece here, right? But she was so quick to protect my husband at work, but has no problem calling me at work, right? So I really want to think about, when we talk about women supporting women, it's not a episode of Mean Girls, but really when it comes down to the way we interact, really, really diving in from that piece. So Steph, I'd like to circle back to you. What does your definition, what do you think women supporting women actually means in practice? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think over the last couple of years, it can be a lot of like LinkedIn posts or social media posts, which I'm all about that. I love women, and all the accomplishments. But for me, what it's really turned into, especially over the last few years, is action. And it's actually the action when no one is really in the room or no one's watching. So it's like mentioning women's names when they're not in the room, or sharing honest growth, direct feedback with someone that really needs to hear it. Or it's like making sure that when someone is talked over in a meeting that you pause and say, hey, actually, McKayla was trying to say something there. And for years, I worked in wireless retail. I was constantly the voice that was talked over, looked over. I just sat quiet until I was able to find my voice because of great mentors and leaders that I work with here at MarketStar today, even. But for me, it has turned into action instead of just posts online.
Yes. And those examples are huge too. One of the big ones is, what you say about someone else holds so much more power than you think. And so, being able to say her name in a room that she's not a part of, like that's the ultimate, rallying, sponsorship, caring for someone. That's huge. Erin, what are some of the ways, in addition to what Steph has said, what are some ways that we're failing to show up for one another? Again, let's be raw and authentic here. Like what are some of those pieces that we need to improve?
I think it's really easy for us to sometimes look at growth as like a zero-sum game, as in someone else's growth is somehow limiting our own. And I think if we can get past that belief, that's where true advocacy begins. Growth is not one size fits all, but also opportunity is plentiful. And one person's growth doesn't necessarily mean that you can't continue to magnify your own professional development. And so I think really celebrating others authentically and genuinely and with our whole hearts, advocating for others, and then of course continuing to work on our own growth opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. That bleeds perfectly into my question for Vicky. Vicky, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, how can we build, the metaphor, build the table together when we're fighting for the same seat? So many times there's lots of opportunity, but if there's only one right now opportunity, how do you put yourself in a situation where you're, believing and, encouraging you, but also the person next to you? And again, in that genuine way, as Erin mentioned.
Yeah, and I agree with Erin and Steph, what they said, and it falls into this question as well, because sometimes we think that I think we have a scarcity mindset, when it comes to that, that there isn't enough room, there isn't enough seats at the table per se. So I think, firstly, start by building bigger tables, sharing the knowledge with one each other, empowering each other, and, like Steph mentioned about the room, making the introductions, showing up for support in that way, and, just opening the doors for others so that we can shift the landscape that we might have, in our head, that there is only, such a small amount of space and we don't have any room for more, and I think that's something that, I've been there, that you do think that there's not enough opportunity, and that you can be selfish, to an extent, that you're not making the room. But I think if we have that power to share that knowledge, then we're going to strengthify, what we're trying to achieve here as, supporting women in business overall.
Absolutely. I love this metaphor of like, if there's not a chair for you, bring your own. If the table's not big enough, pull up wood and build a bigger table. Like it's so true, and seeing that in practice. Angie, I'd love to hear your perspective on this piece.
Well, interestingly, I will share this. When you think about women supporting women, I will tell you what I think that it is not. It is not over promoting someone beyond their abilities simply because they are a woman. That hurts all of us. And I have seen that happen multiple times in my career, and that is never good for us or anyone. So for me, it's about radical candor. It's about helping people play to their strengths and helping them understand their gaps. And you have to be able to have really hard, uncomfortable conversations. There might be times when somebody wants a promotion and they're not ready. And you might be able to see things that could help them be ready. And you have to be able to tell them that, because if you just continue to celebrate and say, oh, everything you do is great, guess what? They're not growing. So you have to be willing to have those hard conversations to help people grow. And I also think that we as leaders and part of this group have a responsibility to call things out when we see things. I remember an incident where I was sitting in a meeting and I noticed that a male leader treated another male leader very, very different in the meeting than he treated a female leader of the same title, and in discussions. And I pointed it out to him, not in the meeting, right? You do those things behind the scenes. Those are not public conversations, but I pointed it out, and it was really hard for me to do that. I actually thought I was going to get fired. I didn't think I'd be back the next day when I did that. But after he thought about it, he came back and he said, you know what? I actually can see your point. You're right. I've got some work to do. And then, there was another time where we had a male leader around the table who was very diminishing in the way he was talking to a couple of us around the table, not intentionally by any means. And I pulled him aside after the meeting and just said, hey, this is how we feel when you say these things this way. Can you please rephrase how you talk about us when you're referring to our projects in this meeting? So I do think we have to be able to have those hard conversations to help raise awareness and help women grow and help our male allies grow and understand. And that just all comes down to being able to be radically candid with one another. And it means that we need to be able to also take that feedback. If someone comes to us, because we're not immune, just because we're women does not mean we are immune from bias by any stretch of the imagination. If somebody comes to us and says, hey, you actually did this, and that actually did not support this female colleague in this meeting, we have to have the humility to reflect on our own actions and our own biases and beliefs and say, you know what, I can do better. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, that's you you get me like charged up and like ready to like have a hard conversation and be able to challenge. It's in theory and sitting here, like I said, I feel empowered to go do that. But then in the moment, I think all of us have had those moments of, oh, like I have to go in and have this. What advice do you give to someone in the moment when the excitement is gone, the burning passion is gone, and it's actually time to approach that? What are some tips that you have for someone to approach any difficult conversation, just in a broad sense?
Probably the first thing is, once you've done it once, it's a lot easier. So you just kind of have to break through that barrier, and then you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. I think keeping it, don't make it personal. You're not attacking the person. You're not telling the person they're a bad person, or they're wrong, or do you know what I mean? If you don't make it personal, you make it about, hey, this was the situation. These were the things that were said, and this is what I noticed, and this is how it was perceived or how it felt to the people around the table. Very few leaders that I've worked with are not humble enough to reflect on that and go, yeah, let's think about that. I didn't know that, because they don't know what they don't know, and they want to grow. And they're actually relying on the people around the table who are their trusted colleagues to help them grow. And they can't grow if we're not able to have those conversations. So I think once you have one conversation, it makes it easier. And then definitely don't make it personal, right? And do it with care. You've got to do it with care. Radical candor always has to come with care. It's a kindness to tell someone the truth. If someone has something, if I have something in my teeth right now and I'm sitting here smiling and no one tells me, that is not a kindness. You're not being nice, people. You need to tell me I have something in my teeth. And the same goes for, some of these things that we see in the workplace. It's a kindness to share that, because it helps people become better leaders.
Oh, yeah, it's such a good point. And it's something I think I can challenge all of us to keep that point right there top of mind when approaching these, of like, this person will not grow without this feedback. Whatever other situations could happen, if we ignore it, you're doing them a disservice. I think that's really powerful, Angie, to keep in mind when approaching those. There's a statistic that says 63% of women have never had a formal female mentor, despite mentorship being linked to higher promotion rates, success rates, and opportunity rates. Marilyn, what tips do you have for an individual to seek out a mentor?
I think first, accepting the fact that you want to be mentored. Just because everybody's doing it, don't go for it. I think genuinely you want to know that you want to grow. And sometimes finding a mentor outside of work also is great, because you just get a fresh perspective. Or just talk to your girls' gang. They're always mentoring you with their critiques, right? But they're actually helping you be a better version of yourself. I think a mentor, whether it's within the work or outside of work, but as long as you have an intention to learn, I think find that person inside work, outside work, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a female mentor, can be anybody. But learning from a fresh perspective really helps you see things differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure I've been on the opposite end of this, and I apologize to those mentors when I have, but I've had individuals who have come to me seeking mentorship, and we get in a room and I'm stoked. I'm honored. I'm thrilled that they thought of me. I'm excited to come in and hopefully give some guidance that will help them. And we get in the room and they're just like, yeah, I just want mentorship. Like, oh, okay. Like, in what? Do we want to bake cookies? Do we want to propel at work? Like, what do you want to mentor in? Marilyn, what advice would you give to someone if you're seeking out a mentor to make the most of that time, not only for the other person, but for yourself? How do you get the most out of that interaction?
I think the default setting for us women, and people, you're welcome to disagree with me, is we're always self-critical of ourselves. That's our default setting. So when we get into a mentorship and a mentor is guiding us, we start evaluating, oh, I'm like this, I have to start doing better. I think if our perspective is, okay, I'm hearing a lot of things, but what can I take now and start doing or applying those things in my life can make me better, is what we should start looking at. I think in listening with the intent that You want to change, but change at your own pace. Nobody's putting pressure on you. Mentorship is not about doing things now. If not now, never. It's not about that at all. It's about, hey, here are the things that are as options for you. You take your own time and understanding, and then see whether you want to apply it or not. Because there's no goal attached to a mentorship session, right? It's just about for you to reflect and see whether you want to apply it or not.
Yeah, that's such a good piece. I think a lot of the times we chase this concept of like, no, I have a mentor. I have a mentor. That's great. But what are you doing with that? So that's really powerful, Marilyn, to really shift the focus behind that. Time is always flying so fast in these. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, and I want to talk about something I think goes hand in hand with being a woman in business, which is hustle culture. We're told, to do it all, but at what cost? Angie, you made a comment earlier of instead of having your personal and professional lives compete, how we can coexist. So really, really figuring out how to shift that. Vicky, why do you think women feel the pressure to do it all? Where do you think this even stems from in modern times, not back to prehistoric times, modern times?
Yeah, it's something that is still there. I think we've made a lot of progress, but I think for so long we've made some like equation of being like perfectly competent with perfection, and having this exhaustion and hustle culture of being busy, busy, busy was something to strive towards. I'm not too sure like how long ago it dates back. I know my mother is like that, and she still is, if she's we we do mock her for one of the things she always says is, I haven't had a chance to sit down all day. And we're like, when do you ever sit down? Because it's something she always says, like, I don't sit down, I don't sit down, but it's like a badge of honor almost. I do think we're getting better. I do think we used to praise, or expect praise for how much we juggle and how busy we are and how we're always on the go. And we sort of get trapped in that. But I'm not too sure how far it dates back, but I do think it's something that we need to stop glorifying, that burnout is ambition almost, because that's what it will lead to, burnout overall. But it's something that I still see, it's something I still struggle with from time to time, to try and find that balance.
Yeah, that's such a big one. Steph, what are your thoughts on, is doing it all a trap wrapped in a compliment? Like how could we shift that thought process?
Yeah, I think it's a compliment trap for sure. It sounds like super empowering, but honestly, it's like keep stretching, keep carrying, don't ask for help, try to do it all. And like that's not the point. We can't do it all. So for me, what I really think we need to do is the real flex isn't doing everything, but it's having the clarity to choose what to do and do meaningful work, and what actually matters, and like letting the rest go. I'm thankful enough I have like an office in my home. And so when I leave the office, like my work is done for today. And my kids know that. And so when they hear the door click open, mom's here or wife is here. So I think it is a compliment trap. And if anyone on this call is facing burnout, you need to tell someone and then figure out where to find margin, because you can't be authentic, real. Your clients, MarketStar doesn't want that version of you. They want a rested version of yourself for sure. So yeah, lots of thoughts on that one.
That's such an important one. And I love that you even bring in just like our organization behind that. Cause I've been in situations in my time here at MarketStar where, I have a leader who is telling me this, and I do believe that they mean it. They're telling me it's okay. You don't need to bring yourself out, take a break, go be on PTO, leave your laptop at home. But then they're doing everything the opposite of what they're telling me. So even though they're telling me this, I'm looking at them thinking, but you're working on vacation, but you're not letting, and so is that really what I'm supposed to do? So for you, Stephanie, as a leader, and I know you have so many strong female leaders and individuals that report into you, how do you set the example for them, not just speak of what you want them to take?
My team's probably laughing because I'm not the best example, and I'll just admit that to the 200 people on the call. I like to take the burden off of people under me because I have a lot of experience in it. And so I do know and recognize though my own burnout. And when that's coming, I get most rest by taking time off. And so I'll go take time off. And that's when if it's a random PTO day that comes up pretty quick, you know that I'm getting close. So I'm not the best example at it, I'll be honest, but I care so much about the people that I work with that I'm like, hey, how can I help? What can I take off your plate? So I'll be honest, I'm not the best example. So it's a mirror reflection moment, McKayla, and I appreciate it.
Give like virtual claps to Steph because I think what's great about this is just the raw, like authentic, self that you're bringing. We all have things that we're trying to work on, that we all have those points that we need to brush up. And it's so refreshing, even in a situation like this, for you to open that piece. And I think a lot of us can share in that growth that we need to focus within. Erin, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, like this concept of, are we addicted to just proving ourselves? Are we scared to stop because of the perception that we think that's going to create? Like where do you think that lies?
Yeah, I honestly, when I think about this, one of the things that comes to mind for me is social media, because I think we see it on social media and we see people's highlight reels, right? We see people that are excelling in their career and their houses are perfect and their kids are well behaved and they're eating homemade organic meals. And then when we look at our reality against their highlight reel, it can be really difficult to reconcile. And I think it can be really easy to feel like we're not doing enough when that's the type of content that we're consistently exposed to. And so I think that it's really important to, be realistic about what we as a human being are capable of. But I also think as a leader, it's really important to operate with transparency and make sure that the people we're working with know that, we're not doing it all and live our lives openly. I'm really fortunate that I've got supportive family. My parents are nearby. They'll help with my kids sometimes if I'm drowning. But I've also, I work, but my kids have amazing daycare providers and I've got neighbors that will help us. And, we've got this community and I'm really privileged and really blessed that I've got people that will help us. And I think it's always important to be transparent about the help that we receive so that we're not continuing to perpetuate this motion of, it is possible to do it all, because the reality is that you're one person and your capabilities are limited and you need to prioritize what's most important to you and delegate the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. Erin, what advice would you give to someone? I think there's different levels of this, right? Thinking about everyone, we come with different levels of, you could say privilege of having that support and having those resources in a community that you can lean on. For what advice would you give to someone who maybe feels that they don't have that community, but really it might be more stemmed from this vulnerability of not wanting to ask for help, not wanting to lean on people because of the perception that would take? How have you been able to open up and really lean on the community and the resources that you have?
Yeah, I think first of all is having the humility to know when you need help and being open to receiving that help. But I think the other piece is that, on times when my workload is lighter, I also need to be able to show up for the people in my village. And how can I support those people during their times of stress and chaos? And that's really the only way that it can work, is if we're giving and taking. And so I think that being open to help, being willing to ask for help when you're really needing in the dire straits, but then also being able to give help when you are in a position to do so.
That's a great, that's what really creates a community. Like, and I think that kind of takes it off. It's not just you receiving, it's you giving it right back into that. So that's a great takeaway. I think all of us can easily start to shift towards. Angie, how do you personally push back against hustle culture?
Well, I suck at this, so I'll just be completely open with you guys. I'm not great at it. I was actually thinking about this morning because one of the questions that you skipped was around generations and who's got it right, who's got it wrong. And I was thinking about, no generation really has it right or wrong. There's different strengths to each. And I was thinking about what my daughters have seen me do in my life. And, at least two of my kids have lots of memories of being the last kid to be picked up at daycare. And I can't take that back. I can't go back and set that boundary, right? But my hope is that my daughters will set those boundaries and they'll say, actually, that's not what I want, right? So I think for me, it's been hard to set boundaries because I do always feel like there's always more to do. There's always more to do. And so setting boundaries is really hard. And we're also just afraid to ask for what we need or admit that we don't have time, or like that's just hard. And it really stems back to fear of failure and fear of not being enough. And I think the best thing that we can do in those situations is have those candid conversations with the people around us, including our coworkers and our bosses, so they understand, and they can help us and bring them in as partners instead of looking at them as either adversaries or the people we have to please, right? Bring them in as partners. 99.9% of the people out there are reasonable people. And when you go to them with genuine, candid concerns, they're going to want to help you. They care about you. And I know this is so true from MarketStar, because the times when I was open about things that I needed, I got the support that I needed. I had a daughter who had a mental health crisis, and I got a phone. I had to leave. I had to be out of work, and I got a phone call from Keith, and he said, do what you need to do. Come back when you're ready. Take care of your family, right? So, I think having the candid conversations and being okay, being vulnerable is probably the first place to start for all of us.
Yeah, that's so powerful. You really, even just in this, you hit on that fact of like really the root of hustle culture. It really does have to come from this perception that we're scared of what it's going to look like from the outside, that we're going to be judged, that we're going to be perceived as, all of the many pieces that we're familiar with, that we've seen there. I love this, goes back to the community piece that Erin was hitting on. There's someone in MarketStar right now who I feel like such a mean person towards, because I'm like, why aren't you responding? Why aren't you getting back to me? Like, I need this, like, this is critical for my team. And then come to find out they have a crisis going on outside of work that I just had no idea. And in that moment, I'm like, respond to my email. But really, and it just shifted the whole piece. I think opening up and leaning and being vulnerable, even back to your comment earlier, Angie, of getting really transparent with your leader. That's what they're there for. I think it bleeds into so many of these topics. Marilyn, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this to close us out on this piece of how can we shift from being busy to being effective at the end of your 40 hours. That's great if you worked 40, some less, some more. We've all been there, but how can we shift the marker to saying, doesn't matter the time, the duration, but what were you able to accomplish?
I think start saying no to things that are not critical or important, but with a valid reason. I think as long as that communication is transparent and in the right spirit, anybody who's on the opposite side will understand that point of view. But I've learned it the hard way, because I always struggle with, wanting to say no, but just wanting to fit in. I'd say yes, and I'll take too much and then burden my team. But I've learned it the hard way when I realize it's not just fair to me, but also to my team members. It's not fair to them either. So now I push back, and I always advocated that in the recent past with my team members, and you can ask them. I'd say, why do they need it? And why now? How long will they need? How can they wait? And if they can wait, how long can they wait? We start asking questions. I think that's the best way to be more effective at work. And I practice the same at home too. Like anybody, if my mother-in-law is asking me something, I just don't want to be nice and say, yes, I'll do it. No, I don't want to do it. I'll say, I'll think about it and come back to you. But I think I've learned it the hard way. So my answer to your question is start saying no first.
Yes, so powerful concept, right? I think we all know that we need to do this. When your boss comes to you, or your boss's boss comes to you and asks for something in that moment, then how do you say no? If Keith walked in the door right now and asked me to do something, how do I do that? Do you have any advice for someone how do you say no in a way that...
Just call me, I'll tell him no for you.
All right, I'll definitely...
I'm just kidding. I can say that because I don't think he's on anymore.
No, Angie, if you have thoughts on that one too, I just, what does that actually look like?
It looks like being vulnerable. Honestly, it looks like saying, I can't. Here's what I have going on. The other thing that you can do, a lot of times bosses, once they tell you to do something, they forget about it, right? And they don't necessarily think through all of the amount of time that it's going to take you to actually accomplish that task, initiative, or project. And so one of the other things that you can do is be very transparent and always keep in front of them in your one-on-one. These are the things I'm working on. And then as new things come in, you can have a conversation about, okay, let's reprioritize what I'm working on. Maybe this other thing you had me working on, maybe we push that deadline out a little bit so I can work on this because you need this now, right? I think being organized with the things you're working on so that you can communicate a clear message will invite them into that because they lose sight of it, right? Your boss can tell you to do 20 things in a week, and they just assume as soon as they tell you to do it, there's a magic wand waved and they're done, right? But you're the one that's managing that workload, and so it's your responsibility to make sure that you're transparent about that workload with your boss. But you need to be transparent in a very kind of data-driven way, I guess. I think walking into someone's office and just saying, I'm just so overwhelmed. Okay, show me why, right? But walking in with, here's everything I've got going on, right? You've just now asked me to plug this in and it's urgent. Let's talk about what can maybe get pushed. So, and I love that somebody just put an Asana thing in the link because I actually really like Asana. Asana is great. Asana or, projects or, something, however you want to track it. Helping them understand the scope of what you're working on and keeping that top of mind for them. That's your job because they're not thinking about that. They're thinking about what's top of mind for them. So some of it is just simple communication with your boss so that they can help you reprioritize.
Yes, I love reframing. That sounds a lot less of a scary situation of me not just saying, no, Dan, I can't do it. Instead, it's okay, here's my list. What would you like me to do? Prioritize. Where do you?
I can do it, but what gets pushed so that I can do it?
That I feel like a team player. I feel like I'm being accountable. I feel like, all of the things that we're trying to achieve. That's amazing. For our audience, I would love for you all to chime in on one thing you're going to stop doing to avoid this hustle culture, to start bringing us away from, this idea of just being busy is what, contributes to our value. I'd love to hear what you're going to stop. And with that, I want to do a power round, speed round to wrap up this interview. And I'd love for each of you to take 20 seconds to tell us either, a takeaway from today, something you're going to do differently, or something you would tell someone maybe newer in their career or at a key step or key stage in their career. Steph, let's kick it to you.
Meet people outside of your program. Meet people outside of your organization. We have incredible people that work around the world, and that has been the brightest light here at MarketStar for me. And we're too stuck in silos, so get out of it.
I did not pay her to say that, but I'm so thrilled that she did. Erin, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I think, some of the conversations around growth and whatnot, if I was giving advice to someone early in their career, I would tell them to define what growth looks like to them. It's a choose your own adventure. So look at your options and then write it down, put it on paper, make it concrete. And that's not to say you can't change your mind later, but you can't be working towards a goal that hasn't been set. So outline what that growth looks like, and then you can reverse engineer your priorities from there.
So powerful. Marilyn.
What I'm really impressed about in today's event was the statistics that I've seen over the years, in the last 10 years. And I'm really kicked and charged about how I can contribute in extending this community in all regions of MarketStar. And I really wanted to see how I can contribute further.
Agreed. Vicky.
Yeah, I think today has been great because everybody here has been so candid. And I think that's something that you can really struggle with, especially at the start of your career, to be your authentic self. So I really try to empower people, and I'd like people to take that message away to be yourself. You can only fake it till you make it for so long, and it's tiresome. So, be your authentic you, don't do something what I did, which I spent a lot of my early career, muting, who I really was. And, it's less than ideal, in the long run. So just, be your own amazing human that you are.
We need our Women in Business Council to schedule a panel 2.0, because you hit on a couple of topics that we weren't able to get to today, but the authenticity is huge. Angie, thank you again for being here. We're so stoked that you were able. Bring us home.
I would leave you with two things. The first is know your why, not somebody else's why, your why. What does success look like to you? What is important to you? Throughout your career, you will have plenty of people who give you advice, who think that the next step for you is XYZ. It's your journey, and don't let anyone take that away from you. Always own your own journey and make it what it works for you, right? That's what success is at the end of the day. And then the last final word I'll say is, I am so proud to see so many of these leaders on this panel, and Chelsea and Amanda and Priscilla, who weren't here 10 years ago, or maybe were and are fairly new. And just to see how you guys have grown up and you are now leading this group, it's kind of a proud mama moment for me. So we're so proud of you guys, and thank you for everything. And thank you for having me. I truly enjoyed being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angie. I think majority of the individuals on this call have all looked to you for leadership and guidance, and holding yourself in a room full of our executives and being that presence and voice for us, I'm sure was no easy feat. And truly, thank you for paving the way and showing us what's possible. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So stoked that you guys were able to join us for our panel today. Definitely connect with these lovely women on LinkedIn and stay in touch. And with that, I'm going to pass back to Amanda.
Awesome. Thank you so much, McKayla. Can't be an event without some kind of technical difficulties. Thank you so much. That was an incredible discussion. The panels are always one of my favorite parts of the discussion, because it just gets raw and we get to hear real authentic stories. One of my favorite moments, just a fun moment, when McKayla brought up the question around applying for roles and the statistics between men and women applying. Every single one of your head nods just simultaneously nod very assertively in agreement with that. So that was cool. Angie, when you talked about hustle culture and how it's hard, for us, like, we're not good at it. We definitely we feel the need to hustle constantly, but the reflection of how that impacts, or what, that empowers from your daughter, and how you want to be a role model for your daughter, I felt that. And we're raising a whole new generation of women, and we want to teach them to say no and teach them to set boundaries. So I really appreciate your message.
Yes, I agree. Why am I doing that now? Okay, sorry. Completely agree, everybody. My heart is so very full. Thank you all for your active participation. I have to add, like, a huge thank you to Steph for getting super vulnerable and sort of changing the tone that panel took. It really allowed for all of us to take a moment and be like, look, we're not all good at what we do. We're not all good at prioritizing all of these things. And we show up every day anyway. And sometimes we have to focus on what we can do better for each other. And I love the example of, like, if you're a leader and doing these things, yet encouraging your downline to, take time off, and you're not actively doing it, you're taking your laptop with you on PTO. It's not a great look. So anyway, we've got to hurry through this. We're over on time, but I want to take a moment and remind everyone to please share your takeaways on LinkedIn. We're going to be choosing our 5 social share winners. So use that hashtag. We will put that back up at the very end. But to close out our event, we're going to welcome Priscilla Silween, Senior Vice President of Marketing, who's going to share a few reflections and take us home. So thank you so much, Priscilla. Over to you.
Thanks, Chelsea. And what an amazing panel that was. McKayla, you did a great job managing that conversation. I will keep this brief. I won't take as much time as we had earlier planned, but I do want to kind of, take a moment to think about 10 years. When I was thinking about what to share, with this group and what parting thoughts to leave with us here, the picture that came to mind was of the Olympic relay, right? The folks carrying the torch. And most often than not, we tend to kind of celebrate the dramatic moment when the torch actually enters the stadium and the entire games begin. But we seldom remember to recognize that the journey of that torch required multiple hands, multiple people carrying that torch through rain, through sunshine, through long roads, through difficult pathways to get that there. And for me, the Women in Business 10-year milestone is a big moment where, you've had so many people who've carried that light through every single challenge over the years and every season and every stage of growth. So, I want to take a moment to kind of recognize the people behind the scenes who've made this possible. It's not just a milestone, guys. It is a movement. It's a movement that has shaped who we are as MarketStar today. And, it wouldn't have been possible with 3-4 different stakeholders that have been involved. You have the early champions who've really kind of led this piece. We have Angie here today, but there have been so many others who've been involved in this entire journey. Danette, Antoinette, Keith, Paul, who've been leaning in on this. It's been their vision that has actually lit the initial spark for change. And I'm grateful that we have folks like that within the MarketStar ecosystem who saw a need and acted on it. I do also want to recognize our current leaders, Steph, Chelsea, Amanda, Francis, Beatrice, all of you guys from every different part of MarketStar who've kind of, this isn't an easy job, right? This is a job about everything else that you're currently juggling with your daily responsibilities, leading your teams, managing client calls and everything else that's there. But you've still kind of taken the time to do this, to advocate, to mentor, and build a program that has actually created impact. So kudos to you guys for doing that. In the grit and the grind of things, you don't realize it, but the seeds that you're planting today will actually take root and shape the future of what we make possible within MarketStar. I do also want to take a moment to recognize the Action Committee and the folks who've been involved in this all through the years. There are so many people behind the scenes who've made every coffee chat possible. Here's a quick glimpse. The chart has more than 200 names out here, both men and women leaning in to create a space where we can bring opportunity and equity within MarketStar. So do want to kind of recognize that. Take a moment. If you see them down the corridor, make sure you give them a pat on the back or just kind of send a ping their way, letting them know that they've impacted change and change that has stood through time. So do want to do that. I also want to recognize our leadership team, and especially the EC on this front. Remember that Women in Business was a platform that was created before most companies even started tracking representation and inclusion, right? It's because of, leaders like Keith, Paul, Ben, who've leaned in and who've created platforms and empowerment initiatives. I mean, Angie shared about the pay parity initiative, way back in 2020s as such. And because of that, we have a place that, we can come together and we can actually strive and thrive in. So do want to recognize the EC and the role that they've played in this entire piece. So what's next for us? As we look forward, I think, apart from the team that's been keeping that flame alive, we also want to recognize that, the next decade will be about deepening this impact. We continue to strive for driving equity. We continue to strive for driving opportunity for women across the globe. But also to kind of create, the next generation of leaders through the platform that we have. But we also need to recognize the fact that, over the last 10 years, MarketStar has also evolved, and we have a truly global workforce right now, one that brings people together, one that brings cultures together, and different perspectives from different parts of the world. So as we continue to kind of focus on, building this community, we also look at how we can play a role in terms of bridging borders, in creating conversations and dialogues that actually create impact, and planting seeds that really take root and also set up future leaders for success. I am reminded of a moment in my yesteryears where I was sitting across the table as part of a program at Geneva, where we were looking at equity and gender equality across the globe. And at the table, we had representatives from Lebanon, from Korea, from Netherlands. And one of the things that stuck out for me from that experience was that, the challenges that we face as women is so very different depending on where we come from. For some of us, it's about access. For some of us, it's about social infrastructure. For some of us, it's about, making sure that we are able to overcome our limitations. And I think as we kind of open up, WIB to the rest of the world and to other offices and centers, I think the more we share, the more dialogues we create will help others within the organization overcome that. Your story, the way that you've tackled an issue and a challenge could be something that somebody else needs to hear. So I do want to encourage you guys to join in, to be part of this conversation, to bring your dialogues, bring your experiences, and nothing is big or small in that, right? It can be something as simple as, getting to work and being the best person that you are, but that could make a change in somebody else's life. So lean in a little bit more so that we can all collectively grow together from our shared stories and experiences. I want to leave you guys with, with final thoughts in terms of, where you can play in. I do want to encourage each of you to be part of this moment, whether, you are somebody who's not comfortable, stepping out into the spotlight. Lean in, share your perspective, make sure that you lend your voice, and be a part of change, because the seeds that you plant today will really take root and will make an impact. To just kind of wrap up, to everybody who's been part of this journey, thank you. It may have been something that you did. Maybe we didn't kind of applaud for you as much as we should have, but it has created the impact that it needed to have. And you've seen the stats that Angie kind of shared and put together. For the next 10 years, let's go ahead and be the torchbearers of change. Let's make sure that we all kind of carry that forward and, create the kind of workplace that we all hope and wish we want to be part of. So thank you guys for doing this, and thank you for the time and for sharing your own chapters and your own stories. Chelsea, over to you.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. With that, we are over time, so we will just say a huge thank you to everyone who participated and for showing up, taking time away from your day to be here. We appreciate it. We will see you soon. Please share your takeaways or a favorite moment from today's event and use MarketStar Women in Business 10 on socials. And again, join us at our next Women in Business Coffee event. We'll see you soon. Have a fantastic day, everyone.